Friends, colleagues, fellow observers of the financial world, I stand before you tonight with a sense of urgency, a conviction born of decades analyzing market cycles and government machinations. What we are witnessing, what has been brewing beneath the surface of seemingly calm waters, is not merely another fluctuation, another temporary market blip that will soon correct itself and allow us to return to business as usual. No. I believe, with every fiber of my being, that tonight, or the very near future, could indeed mark the turning point, a profound and perhaps irreversible shift in the global financial landscape. The kind of inflection point that history books will highlight for generations to come. This isn't hyperbole, nor is it a casual forecast tossed out lightly. This is the culmination of patterns I have observed for over half a century, patterns that have been distorted, ignored, and outright suppressed by the very institutions tasked with maintaining stability, but which now, finally, are ready to reassert themselves with an undeniable, unstoppable force. We're not just talking about a cyclical market correction, a garden-variety recession, or a sector-specific downturn. We are discussing something far more fundamental, a fundamental reevaluation of value itself, an awakening to the true nature of wealth versus perceived wealth, and the stark realities of monetary integrity versus perpetual debasement. It is a moment where the chickens, as they say, finally come home to roost, and the piper demands payment for decades of unprecedented financial extravagance and imprudence. Look around you. Observe the landscape, not through the rose-tinted glasses of official narratives, but with a clear, unvarnished perspective. We are grappling with unprecedented levels of global debt, sovereign debt, corporate debt, consumer debt, a colossal mountain of liabilities that continues to grow exponentially, seemingly without limit or consequence. We endure persistent, sticky inflation, which central banks initially tried to rationalize as transitory, a temporary blip, only to now grudgingly admit its stubborn persistence, all while attempting to redefine what inflation even means for the average household. Geopolitical instability is escalating with alarming frequency, transforming once distant skirmishes into immediate global concerns, threatening supply lines and alliances. Supply chains themselves remain fragile, prone to disruption by everything from pandemics to regional conflicts, exposing the brittle nature of our interconnected world economy. And beneath it all, an insidious, almost silent erosion of trust in the institutions that claim to be the guardians of our economic stability, our financial future, and the integrity of our currencies. The public, by and large, senses that something is profoundly amiss, even if they can't quite articulate its full scope or implications. If this resonates with your observations, I urge you to take a moment and hit that like button. It helps signal to others that this conversation is vital. For too long, the financial establishment, the powerful central banks, and the governments they serve have pursued policies that can only be described as self-defeating, bordering on reckless. They've printed trillions, if not quadrillions, of new currency units out of thin air, digitally or otherwise, flooding the system with liquidity. They've manipulated interest rates to artificial lows, often to zero or even negative territory, distorting every market signal and incentive. They've socialized losses incurred by financial giants while allowing the gains to be privatized, creating a moral hazard of epic proportions. They've created an illusion of prosperity, a monetary house of cards built on the shifting sands of ever-expanding debt, asset bubbles, and currency debasement. This system, as currently configured, is not just stressed, it is fundamentally broken, held together by sheer narrative, dwindling faith in institutions, and the desperate hope that somehow, magically, the music won't stop. The consequence? A rapidly approaching moment of reckoning where the true cost of these unsustainable policies will finally be paid, not by those who enacted them with impunity, but by everyone who holds their wealth in traditional, fiat-denominated assets, your savings, your pensions, your future purchasing power. The question then becomes, and it is a crucial one for every single individual watching this, when this elaborate, fragile edifice of financial engineering begins to crumble, as all such unsustainable structures eventually do, where will true value be found? What assets will retain their purchasing power, their intrinsic worth, when the illusion can no longer be maintained? when the narratives lose their grip on reality? What happens when the emperors of our financial system are finally revealed to have no clothes, when their promises prove to be nothing more than paper-thin illusions? These aren't rhetorical questions. They are urgent inquiries that demand serious consideration and proactive preparation. And if you are seeking answers to these profound questions, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the vital insights we'll be sharing. Let's delve deeper into the machinations that have brought us to this precipice. Consider the actions of central banks globally. Over the past 15 years, particularly since the financial crisis of 2008, we've witnessed an unprecedented experiment in monetary policy. Quantitative easing, QE, ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, and even NIRP, negative interest rate policy, became the standard tools. The stated goal was to stimulate economic growth, to fight deflation, and to provide stability. The actual outcome, however, has been a massive transfer of wealth, the destruction of savings, and an incentivization of malinvestment on a scale previously unimaginable. By keeping interest rates artificially low, they punish savers, forcing capital into increasingly risky assets in a desperate search for yield. This fueled asset bubbles in everything from real estate to equities, creating a veneer of wealth effect that masked underlying economic stagnation and the erosion of real purchasing power. The average person, diligently saving, saw their returns vanish, while those with access to cheap credit and financial leverage accumulated vast fortunes in appreciating assets. This is not a sustainable model. It breeds inequality, resentment, and systemic fragility. The very concept of fiat currency, money not backed by a physical commodity but by government decree, has always carried an inherent vulnerability. Historically, fiat currencies have a lifespan, and their eventual demise is often linked to the very policies we're seeing today: excessive printing, debasement, and a loss of public confidence. Empires throughout history have fallen not just from military conquest, but from the economic self-destruction brought on by debasing their currency to fund wars or lavish spending. We are, in essence, repeating a very old, very dangerous pattern, but on a globalized, technologically amplified scale. The dollar, the euro, the yen, they are all at their core just promises, backed by the full faith and credit of governments that are themselves drowning in debt. How much faith can one truly place in credit that is perpetually expanded without any real backing? This continuous expansion, this monetary inflation, is an insidious form of taxation, quietly siphoning away your wealth, day by day, month by month, year by year, without the need for an explicit legislative act. Your purchasing power erodes, your cost of living rises, and the value of your labor is diminished. This brings me to the critical counterpoint, the unwavering beacon in this storm of financial uncertainty. Monetary metals, specifically gold and silver. For thousands of years across countless civilizations and cultures, these metals have served as the ultimate store of value, the truest form of money. Why? Because they possess intrinsic qualities that fiat currencies can never replicate: rarity, durability, divisibility, portability, and most importantly, they cannot be created by decree. They are finite. You cannot simply print more gold. You cannot magically conjure more silver from the ether. Their supply is dictated by geological forces, not by political whims or the desperate impulses of central bankers. They are the antithesis of the modern financial system, standing as a tangible, unencumbered hedge against systemic risk and the inevitable debasement of paper promises. If you're starting to see the profound implications of this divergence, I'd appreciate it if you'd tap that like button. It truly helps this message gain traction. Many will argue that gold and silver are merely relics, antiquated assets with no place in a modern digital economy. This is a deliberate misdirection. The very reason they are often downplayed or dismissed by the establishment is precisely because they represent a direct challenge to the fiat system. For decades, we've witnessed extensive market manipulation in the precious metals sector, often through paper derivatives, futures contracts, and vast short positions, all designed to suppress their price, to keep them from signaling the true extent of monetary inflation and the underlying fragility of the financial system. This suppression is a crucial pillar in maintaining public faith in fiat currencies. If gold were allowed to truly price discovery, reflecting the enormous increase in global money supply, its value would likely be orders of magnitude higher than it is today, sending an unmistakable alarm signal to every market participant. However, this manipulation, while effective for a time, is becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. The sheer weight of physical demand, the dwindling above-ground supply relative to the amount of fiat currency in existence, and the growing skepticism about central bank credibility are all converging to make the current suppression unsustainable. Recall what happened in 1971 when President Nixon unilaterally closed the gold window, effectively severing the last link between the US dollar and gold. That act unleashed an era of unprecedented fiat currency expansion, allowing governments to spend without the immediate discipline that a gold backing imposed. Consider the balance sheets of the major central banks today. They are bloated with trillions in assets, many of them illiquid or questionable, accumulated through years of QE. This is not a healthy financial position. It's a testament to desperation. Think about your grandparents' purchasing power versus today. A silver dollar from 1964 would buy significantly more than a paper dollar does now. The purchasing power of gold, however, has largely maintained its historical value, often increasing it dramatically in times of crisis. Inflation isn't just a number, it's an insidious theft, silently eroding the value of your hard-earned money and savings. It's against this intricate tapestry of financial folly, deliberate deception, and the relentless march of economic reality that I reiterate my conviction. Tonight, or very, very soon, we will witness the beginning of a paradigm shift. The turning point won't be announced with fireworks. It will likely unfold subtly at first, a whisper, a tremor, then gather momentum like a tsunami, sweeping away the carefully constructed illusions of stability. This is why it's so critical to pay attention, to understand the forces at play, and to position oneself appropriately. The big revelation, in my estimation, is that the market is finally going to force a fundamental repricing of risk, and more importantly, a repricing of money itself. The value proposition of holding truly sound money, gold and silver, versus the perpetually debased, unbacked promises of governments and central banks is about to become overwhelmingly clear to a broad swathe of the population. We are looking at a scenario where the artificial props holding up the current system will buckle under the weight of their own contradictions, leading to a dramatic, possibly frantic, reallocation of capital away from paper claims and into tangible, unencumbered assets. The suppressed prices of gold and silver, those ancient, resilient beacons of real value, are poised for an explosive revaluation as the world, starved for true safety and liquidity, seeks genuine havens. The true price discovery for these metals has been delayed for far too long by manipulative forces, but it cannot be denied forever. This turning point will be marked by a surge in demand for what is real, what is tangible, what is finite, and a desperate flight from what is merely perceived to have value, but in reality is nothing more than an IOU on an overstretched balance sheet. The emperors have no clothes, and the market is about to shout it from the rooftops. The time for complacency is over. The time for understanding the profound financial and monetary forces at play is now. This isn't merely an academic exercise or a speculative wager. It's about the preservation of your purchasing power, the protection of your savings, and ultimately, your financial sovereignty in an increasingly uncertain world. I urge you to listen closely to what I'll share next, as we delve deeper into the specific mechanisms and opportunities that this turning point will unleash. Stay tuned, because in Part 2 we will explore the tangible steps one might consider, the practical actions and considerations in light of these unfolding events, and how to potentially navigate what promises to be one of the most significant wealth transfers in history. Your financial future may well depend on it. The air is thick with anticipation, isn't it? A feeling that something monumental is stirring, just beneath the surface of these markets. A seismic shift that many have dismissed as mere conspiracy or hyperbole for far too long. But tonight, I tell you, that feeling has reached a crescendo, a palpable tension that suggests the breaking point is no longer a distant possibility, but an immediate certainty. For years I've stood here, sometimes feeling like a lone voice in the wilderness, speaking about a financial gravity defying all logical norms, a system teetering on the brink of perpetual illusion. But tonight, that very fabric of illusion feels stretched to its absolute maximum capacity, ready to tear, revealing the stark, unvarnished truth of our economic reality. We've all witnessed an unprecedented expansion of debt, a veritable explosion of derivatives that dwarfs global GDP, and central banks frantically attempting to paint a picture of stability, while their every action screams desperation. They talk of transitory inflation while your grocery bills tell a different story. They speak of soft landings, while the housing market buckles and small businesses gasp for air. The real issue, the true conflict, isn't merely between these rising inflation numbers and the impotent interest rate hikes. It's a profound, fundamental struggle between a system engineered for perpetual growth on borrowed time and the undeniable realities of physics, of mathematics, of sound economics. It's the fight between endless fiat creation and finite, tangible wealth. How much longer, I ask you, can they possibly suppress the price of gold and silver when the physical demand, quiet but persistent, is overwhelming their paper games? What happens when a major player, a nation, or perhaps even a consortium, finally breaks rank and demands physical settlement, exposing the vast chasm between what they claim to have and what truly exists? And what about the terrifying implications for the U.S. dollar's global standing when the world realizes it's holding an empty bag, a promise predicated on an ever-diminishing faith? These are not academic questions for a textbook. These are the open loops, the ticking time bombs that are about to detonate. Consider the farce of quantitative tightening. They speak of shrinking balance sheets, of unwinding years of monetary insanity, yet the scale of this supposed tightening is a mere drop in the ocean compared to the leviathan of debt they have created. The market, so addicted to liquidity, convulses at even the slightest hint of withdrawal. It's like trying to wean a heroin addict with a single aspirin. It's ineffective, it's dangerous, and ultimately, it's doomed to fail. We're watching the pretense of control crumble. Then look to the east, to the burgeoning power of the BRICS nations. This is not just a geopolitical realignment. It's a deliberate strategic pivot away from the dollar, a clear signal that the world is no longer content to be shackled by a system that serves only a select few. These nations are accumulating gold at a rate that is frankly astounding, repatriating their wealth, building a parallel financial architecture based on sounder, more tangible principles. This is a massive pattern interrupt to the Western narrative, a declaration that the emperor has no clothes. They see the writing on the wall and they are preparing for a post-dollar world. And what about the physical market itself? The disconnect between the paper price on the COMEX and the actual availability of physical metal is becoming egregious. Premiums on physical gold and silver, particularly for smaller denominations that everyday people can access, are exploding in markets globally. Stories are emerging from vaults, often anecdotal but increasingly credible, of inventories dwindling, of delivery delays, of a squeeze that is quietly building beneath the radar of the financial media. The paper market is a casino. The physical market is where real wealth is preserved. If you're finding value in this discussion, if these insights are resonating with you, please hit that like button. It truly helps us spread this crucial message to more people who need to hear it. The mainstream narrative, the carefully constructed illusion, is collapsing. People are no longer buying the official statistics, the talking points from central bankers, or the soothing reassurances from Wall Street pundits. They are seeking truth, they are asking difficult questions, and they are turning to alternative sources, to independent analysis, to voices that have been warning about this for decades. This shift in consciousness, this collective awakening, is as powerful as any economic indicator. It's the don't look up scenario playing out in real time, where governments and institutions continue to ignore the asteroid hurtling towards us, hoping it will simply disappear. But the asteroid, my friends, is economic reality, and it's getting closer every single day. The debt spiral is a mathematical certainty. You cannot possibly service trillions upon trillions of dollars of debt, let alone ever pay it down, without either defaulting or inflating it away. And they will choose inflation, because default is politically unpalatable. But uncontrolled inflation is merely a slower, more insidious form of default, eroding the purchasing power of your savings, your pensions, your very future. This is why precious metals are not just an investment. They are a necessary protection, a shield against the inevitable debasement of fiat currency, and silver in particular is poised for an epic move. Its unique combination of monetary history and crucial industrial demand, from solar panels to electric vehicles, makes it incredibly vulnerable to a short squeeze. The short positions in the paper market are colossal, built on the assumption that physical silver is infinite. It is not. When the industrial demand truly bites, when investment demand converges with it, the paper shorts will be annihilated, and the price discovery for silver will shock the world. This isn't just a hypothesis anymore, my friends. We are observing the initial tremors of what I've called the greatest wealth transfer in history, playing out in real time before our very eyes. This is the re-engagement, the stark realization that the turning point is not a theoretical concept, but an unfolding drama. So, what is the catalyst? What marks this tonight as the turning point? It's not necessarily one singular dramatic event announced on the evening news. Rather, it's the cumulative weight of all these pressures, the unsustainable debt, the eroding confidence in fiat, the surging physical demand for gold and silver, the geopolitical realignment, the failing narratives, reaching an undeniable critical mass. It's the moment when the last thread of confidence snaps. It could be a major sovereign default that can no longer be papered over. It could be a significant market announcement from a major global power regarding their currency or reserves. It could be a geopolitical shock that finally breaks the dam of investor complacency, or it could simply be the invisible hand of the market finally asserting itself, pushing gold and silver prices to levels that reflect their true value, a value that has been suppressed for decades. When this happens, the dollar's fate will be inextricably linked to this revaluation. As confidence in fiat falters, the flight to tangible safety will be undeniable, an avalanche. The price discovery will be brutal for those holding paper assets, and breathtaking for those who have positioned themselves in physical gold and silver. The open loops about suppression, physical demand, and the dollar's standing will be closed with brutal finality. The how long becomes not much longer. The what happens is a catastrophic revaluation, a market-driven reset where gold and silver reassume their historical, rightful roles as the ultimate stores of value. Don't miss a single update as these pivotal events unfold. Subscribe to this channel right now and ring that notification bell. It's never been more vital to stay informed. The curtain is lifting. The charade, the grand illusion of endless prosperity built on endless debt, is ending. Those who have positioned themselves wisely, understanding these fundamental forces at play, who have chosen tangible assets over ephemeral promises, will not only survive but truly thrive in the new paradigm that is now dawning. The time for contemplation is over. The time for decisive action, for understanding your holdings, for protecting your wealth with tangible assets, is now. Educate yourselves, reassess your portfolios, and ensure you're not left behind when the tide finally turns. Engage with us in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your concerns, your strategies. Let's navigate this unprecedented era together.